He faced Trump head-on. What Ramaphosa did next left the world in shock. No fear, no filter. Ramaphosa's words to Trump just changed everything. Trump didn't expect that response, but Ramaphosa spoke for all of Africa. The moment Ramaphosa put Trump in his place, South Africa erupts in praise. This is why South Africans are applauding Ramaphosa around the clock. Trump tried to intimidate him. Ramaphosa's comeback was legendary. The bold statement from Ramaphosa that silenced the room. South Africa cheers as Ramaphosa stands tall against Western pressure. He faced the most powerful man in the world and didn't flinch. Why Ramaphosa's message to Trump is being called a turning point for Africa. In a powerful and unexpected move, President Cyril Ramaphosa boldly confronted Donald Trump on the global stage, sending a clear message of African dignity and independence. This video breaks down the moment that had South Africa cheering, as Ramaphosa's fearless stand went viral across the continent and beyond. What did Ramaphosa say to Trump? Why is this moment so important for Africa's global image? How did the international media react? Watch now to witness the moment that has the entire African continent talking, and the West watching closely. Ramaphosa versus Trump exchange. On May 21, 2025, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa met U.S. President Donald Trump in the Oval Office, an encounter that became a flashpoint due to Trump's confrontational tactics. Trump accused South Africa of orchestrating a white genocide, falsely claiming that white Afrikaner farmers were being systematically murdered and their land confiscated under South Africa's land reform policies. He dimmed the room's lights to play a video montage, featuring clips of economic freedom fighters, EFF, leader Julius Malema singing the anti-apartheid song, Kill the Boer, alongside images of white crosses from a 2020 protest, misrepresented as graves. Trump also presented news clippings, including one from the Congo, not South Africa, to bolster his narrative. He pressed Ramaphosa on why Malema had not been arrested and suggested that land reforms enabled these alleged killings, echoing far-right conspiracies amplified by figures like Elon Musk. Ramaphosa, a veteran of South Africa's anti-apartheid struggle and a skilled negotiator, responded with remarkable composure. He clarified that Malema's EFF, with only 9% of the vote in the 2024 elections, does not represent government policy. What you saw, the speeches that were made, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, he said, emphasizing the country's democratic framework. He explained that the land reform law, signed in January 2025, allows expropriation without compensation only in specific cases, such as in used or fallow land, and no such seizures had occurred. Ramaphosa also debunked the white genocide myth, noting that crime in South Africa, while a serious issue, disproportionately affects black citizens. People who do get killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity are not only white people. The majority of them are black people, he stated. To counter Trump's narrative visually and symbolically, Ramaphosa brought a diverse delegation, including white South Africans like golfers Ernie Els and Retief Goosen, billionaire Johan Rupert, and Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen, leader of the Democratic Alliance, DA. He pointedly remarked, if there was a genocide, these three gentlemen would not be here, using their presence to dismantle Trump's claims. Ramaphosa also attempted to pivot the conversation to economic priorities, highlighting South Africa's critical minerals, like platinum and manganese, and the need for U.S. investment to address unemployment, which stands at 32% and fuels crime. Despite Trump's interruptions and provocations, Ramaphosa employed humor, joking about not having a plane to gift Trump, a nod to a Qatar-related controversy, and invoked Nelson Mandela's legacy of racial reconciliation to underscore South Africa's commitment to unity. This exchange, marked by Trump's aggression and Ramaphosa's restraint, set the stage for a broader discussion on Africa's global image. Why this moment is important for Africa's global image. The Ramaphosa-Trump exchange was a defining moment for Africa's global image, as it highlighted the continent's ability to confront and refute harmful stereotypes propagated by powerful global figures. Trump's reliance on the debunked white genocide narrative, rooted in far-right disinformation, painted South Africa as a lawless, anti-white state, risking a broader mischaracterization of Africa as unstable and conflict-ridden. This narrative, amplified by figures like Musk and far-right media, threatens to undermine Africa's progress in building democratic institutions, fostering economic growth, and promoting regional integration. Ramaphosa's poised response, backed by a diverse delegation and grounded in facts, directly challenged this distortion. By calmly debunking Trump's claims, he presented South Africa as a stable, multiracial democracy committed to addressing its challenges through governance and dialogue. As Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama wrote in The Guardian, Trump's accusations ignored the historical context of apartheid and colonialism, which left deep inequalities that South Africa is still addressing. Mahama noted that half of South Africans are under 29, a young population focused on building a rainbow nation rather than perpetuating racial divisions. Ramaphosa's ability to maintain dignity under pressure showcased Africa's diplomatic maturity, countering perceptions of fragility. Economically, the moment was critical. South Africa's pursuit of a renewed African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, trade agreement and U.S. investment in critical minerals was at stake. Ramaphosa's focus on trade and investment, even amid Trump's provocations, positioned South Africa, and by extension, Africa, as a serious global partner. The diverse delegation, including members of the Government of National Unity, GNU, signaled internal cohesion, crucial for attracting foreign investment. This unity contrasted with Trump's divisive rhetoric, reinforcing Africa's image as a continent moving toward stability and cooperation. The exchange also resonated symbolically. By standing firm against a global superpower's leader, Ramaphosa embodied Africa's growing assertiveness in rejecting external misrepresentations. His invocation of Mandela's legacy and the presence of white delegates like Steenhuisen and Rupert challenged the narrative of racial conflict, presenting a unified front. This moment could inspire other African nations to assert their narratives, enhancing the continent's global standing as it prepares to host events like the G20 summit in November 2025. South African foreign policy stance. South Africa's foreign policy under Ramaphosa is rooted in multilateralism, non-alignment, and advocacy for the global South, reflecting its post-apartheid identity as a bridge between Africa and the world. The country has taken bold stances, such as its 2023 genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, which accused Israel of violations in Gaza. This move strained U.S.-South Africa relations, particularly under Trump, who responded by cutting aid, expelling South Africa's ambassador, and threatening 30% tariffs over South Africa's BRICS affiliations and its neutral stance on Ukraine. Ramaphosa's visit to Washington aimed to reset this relationship, prioritizing trade under AGOA and investment in critical minerals to address South Africa's economic challenges, including 32% unemployment and stagnant growth. And the meeting, Ramaphosa's approach exemplified South Africa's commitment to principled diplomacy. He avoided escalating Trump's provocations, instead using factual rebuttals and humor to defuse tensions. His clarification that Malima's rhetoric does not reflect government policy and his emphasis on democratic freedoms underscored South Africa's adherence to open governance. By invoking Mandela's legacy, Ramaphosa positioned South Africa as a moral counterpoint to Trump's inflammatory narrative, emphasizing reconciliation over division. The strategic inclusion of white delegates like Steenhuisen, Els, and Rupert reflected South Africa's foreign policy goal of projecting unity and stability. The GNU, formed after the ANC lost its parliamentary majority in 2024, includes diverse parties like the DA, which Steenhuisen leads. This coalition's presence in the delegation signaled domestic cohesion, crucial for reassuring international partners amid economic negotiations. Ramaphosa's focus on critical minerals and trade aligned with South Africa's broader strategy to leverage its resources for development, as seen in its leadership in BRICS and the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. As a G20 member and Africa's only representative in that forum, South Africa seeks to amplify the continent's voice. Ramaphosa's handling of the Trump exchange reinforced South Africa's role as a diplomatic leader, capable of navigating global tensions while advocating for equitable partnerships. This stance is particularly significant as South Africa prepares to host the G20 summit, where it aims to highlight African priorities like infrastructure, energy transitions, and debt relief. African leaders demanding global respect. The Ramaphosa-Trump exchange is part of a broader movement among African leaders to demand respect and agency in global affairs. Historically, Africa has been subjected to external narratives that emphasize conflict, poverty, and dysfunction, often ignoring its progress in democracy, technology, and economic integration. Ramaphosa's composed rebuttal to Trump's falsehoods aligned with this push for respect, as he directly challenged a narrative rooted in colonial-era stereotypes. Mahama's op-ed in The Guardian framed the encounter as a defense of Africa's essential historical truths, emphasizing the need to counter misrepresentations that ignore the legacy of apartheid and colonialism. This assertiveness reflects a generational shift. Africa's young population, 60% of the continent is under 25, is driving a new wave of leadership focused on sovereignty and equity. Leaders like Nigeria's Bola Tinubu, who has pushed for stronger intra-African trade through AfCFTA, and Kenya's William Ruto, who advocates for climate financing, are rejecting paternalistic interventions. Ramaphosa's meeting, though contentious, showcased Africa's ability to engage global powers without capitulating. His diverse delegation, spanning racial and political lines, challenged monolithic stereotypes and mirrored the continent's complex identity. African leaders are also leveraging institutions like the African Union, AU, and BRICS to amplify their voices. South Africa's ICJ case against Israel and its resistance to U.S. sanctions over BRICS ties exemplify this boldness. The AU's Agenda 2063, which emphasizes self-reliance and unity, underpins this trend, as does the growing influence of African youth in global forums. Ramaphosa's ability to navigate Trump's hostility while advancing trade talks signals a strategic assertiveness that other African leaders are emulating, positioning the continent as an equal partner in global governance. Reaction from South African citizens. South African reactions to the Ramaphosa-Trump exchange were diverse, reflecting the country's complex socio-political landscape. Many citizens praised Ramaphosa's calm demeanor, with outlets like News 24 and Daily Maverick commending his restraint in the face of Trump's ambush. Posts on X reflected similar sentiments, with users like @SandersThePatriot calling Ramaphosa calm, collected, and humble in the face of bigotry and lies. The ANC issued a statement lauding Ramaphosa's conduct as embodying Mandela's diplomatic tradition, while analyst Atumeling Makgetla noted that the GNU's United Front bolstered its domestic legitimacy. However, some South Africans felt Ramaphosa was too conciliatory. Journalist Zanil Mji, writing in The Guardian, argued that he should have more forcefully confronted Trump's white supremacist narrative, given its potential to fuel global misinformation. On X, users like @FreedomVoiceSA echoed this, saying, "Cyril was too polite. Trump needed a history lesson on apartheid." Right-wing Afrikaner groups, such as AfriForum, seized on Trump's claims, organizing protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Pretoria with signs reading, "Make South Africa Great Again." These groups saw Trump's intervention as validation of their grievances about farm attacks, despite official data showing no evidence of genocide. The inclusion of Els, Goosen, and Rupert sparked debate. Some, like Cape Town-based commentator at Rainbow Nation X, praised it as a pragmatic move to counter Trump's narrative, while others, including Daily Maverick columnist Oscar Van Heerden, questioned their relevance, asking, "What do golfers bring to diplomacy?" Malema capitalized on the global attention, posting on X, "Two older men gossiping about me in the Oval Office, flattered." This quip boosted his domestic profile among EFF supporters. Ordinary citizens expressed mixed views. Johannesburg student Dumisani Naisai, quoted by DW, questioned the visit's timing given Trump's hostility, while Cape Town resident Thandai Ndlovu called Trump's behavior disrespectful and immature. Polls on X showed 60% of respondents approving of Ramaphosa's handling, though many urged stronger pushback in future encounters. The exchange deepened domestic debates about race, land reform, and South Africa's global image, with the GNU's unity both praised and scrutinized. International media coverage. International media extensively covered the Ramaphosa-Trump exchange, framing it as a clash between Trump's provocative diplomacy and South Africa's resilient response. Reuters, NPR, and the New York Times described the meeting as an ambush, highlighting Trump's reliance on discredited far-right conspiracies about white genocide. CNN praised Ramaphosa's negotiation skills, noting that he pushed back gently whenever he could, while maintaining focus on trade. The BBC called the diverse delegation a diplomatic golden dome, emphasizing its role in debunking Trump's narrative. Al Jazeera underscored the economic stakes, noting risks to AGOA and South Africa's HIV/AIDS programs, which rely on U.S. funding. The Guardian, featuring Mahama's op-ed, framed Trump's accusations as an insult to Africa's post-colonial struggle, ignoring the historical context of apartheid. Foreign Policy labeled the exchange a reversion to open racism by Trump, while Time noted that Ramaphosa's composure earned sympathy but highlighted domestic challenges like the ANC's declining support, down to 40% in 2024. Outlets like NPR and ABC News debunked Trump's evidence, clarifying that the video's white crosses were symbolic, not graves, and one image was from the Congo, not South Africa. The coverage portrayed South Africa as both a victim of Trump's performative diplomacy, aimed at his domestic base, and a nation capable of standing its ground. Chatham House suggested that the meeting could catalyze strategic trade negotiations if South Africa leverages its unified image. European outlets like Le Monde and Der Spiegel emphasized Ramaphosa's diplomatic skill, contrasting it with Trump's reality TV style. Overall, the international media bolstered South Africa's image as a democratic leader in Africa, while exposing Trump's reliance on misinformation. Growing African unity and assertiveness. The Ramaphosa-Trump exchange reflects a broader trend of growing African unity and assertiveness. The continent is increasingly presenting a cohesive front through institutions like the AU and BRICS. South Africa's GNU, comprising 10 parties across racial and ideological lines, exemplifies this unity, as seen in the diverse delegation's role in countering Trump's narrative. Steenhuisen's presence alongside ANC figures showcased a collaborative approach to national challenges, reinforcing South Africa's stability and countering perceptions of division. Economically, Africa is asserting itself through initiatives like AfCFTA, which aims to boost intra-African trade to $3 trillion by 2030. South Africa's push for AGOA renewal and investment in critical minerals aligns with this goal, as does its leadership in BRICS, where it advocates for alternative financial systems to reduce reliance on Western institutions. Ramaphosa's ability to navigate Trump's hostility while advancing trade talks exemplifies this strategic assertiveness, mirrored by leaders like Tinubu and Ruto, who prioritize economic sovereignty. Africa's unity is also rooted in shared history. Mahama's defense of Ramaphosa echoed Ghana's support during South Africa's apartheid-era struggles, reflecting a continental solidarity against external distortions. The AU's Agenda 2063 and the continent's young population, projected to drive the world's second fastest growth in 2025, fuel this assertiveness. African leaders are rejecting interference, as seen in South Africa's ICJ case and resistance to U.S. tariffs. The EU's $1.6 billion support for South Africa's energy transition and Nigeria's push for G20 membership further illustrate Africa's growing influence. This unity and assertiveness position Africa to redefine its global narrative. Ramaphosa's handling of the Trump exchange, combined with the continent's economic and diplomatic strides, signals a future where African nations demand respect as equals, leveraging their resources, youth, and institutions to shape global agendas. Conclusion: the Ramaphosa-Trump exchange was a defining moment for South Africa and Africa's global image. Ramaphosa's composed, fact-based response to Trump's false claims challenged stereotypes and showcased diplomatic resilience. South Africa's foreign policy, rooted in multilateralism and reconciliation, positioned it as a leader in advocating for Africa's respect. While South Africans were divided, with many praising Ramaphosa's calm and others seeking a stronger rebuke, international media lauded his dignity and debunked Trump's narrative. The encounter highlighted Africa's growing unity and assertiveness, as nations like South Africa leverage diverse coalitions and economic potential to demand a rightful place on the global stage.